The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Good evening and welcome to our webinar for Making Waves, our scientific challenge for this year. On the phone, we have Julia Hampton, who is one of our affiliate challenge masters from Pagosa Springs, Colorado, one of the most beautiful places in the state. And she is here to train us all on making waves. If you have any questions for Julia during the broadcast, go ahead and type them in the question box. When it is appropriate, I will go ahead and interrupt Julia and and ask her a question. So just feel free to write your questions, and we welcome you all to our webinar. Take it away, Julia.
Okay. Welcome, everyone. And I want to just take a minute up front to say thank you to everyone for being team managers for Destination Imagination. It's a huge job, I know, because I did it for many years. So starting off with thank you, and I'm sure you're in for quite a few busy months with your teams. So thanks for being here. Kate, can you go to the second page? Or am I driving it, or you are? Kate?
I'm sorry, I muted myself. Yeah, I'm driving.
Okay, so move to page 2 then.
Should be there. It is on page 2.
So we're going to start off by, okay, I don't see page 2. It's still on the first one for me.
Really?
Can someone else let us know if it advanced for them?
So if it advanced, if you can see Challenge Masters on the webinar, can you just put some in the question mark as if you see the first page or the Challenge Master page? So type in your question box what you guys are seeing right now, either front page or Challenge Master page. Oh, everyone's seeing the first page. Hold on.
We frozen?
I don't know. Oh, hey, Jim. Okay, so we're going to...
We do.
Okay, is that better?
Still on page 1.
Okay. All right. Why don't you... I will try to fix what I'm doing. Okay?
There it is.
Okay, there we go. There
Okay.
we go. Okay, thank you, Kate. Okay, so starting off with the challenge masters and the people in our state that are related to this challenge, I think it's important for you guys to know who the who is. And we have Jim Stanek. He's also on the call tonight. He's state level affiliate challenge master lead. He also is an RCM for North Metro and Jeffco, and then I'm listed there. Southwest is where I am in Pagosa Springs, and then Dick Wotulski is another lead challenge master, affiliate challenge master at the state level, and he also handles Denver. So you can look at the rest of the names here, and what's important is for you to know that these are people you can go to. So if you look at your own region and you see a name there, that is someone you can ask questions of related to this challenge if needed. Sometimes we will ask you to go for a clarification to the international challenge masters, but you can always start with the regional challenge master in your area. Okay, next page. For this presentation, we'll be going through it in a pretty informal manner. Kate told you how you can ask questions, and like she said, she'll bring those up to me. There are a lot of things that we'll cover in the presentation today. We'll talk about the challenge. We'll talk about some guidelines. We'll talk about what happens at the tournament, just to make sure you're well versed on what goes on. But if you have a question that seems like we haven't answered it, please feel free to put it in the box and Kate will interrupt me. She will gladly interrupt me. Okay, so move on to the next page.
Sorry.
Okay. And just general guidelines about the challenge. It is really important that you have read the challenge and that your team has as well. As a team manager, you know, when I was a team manager, what our team would do is go back to this probably once a month as we were creating, because you know when kids get in the DI mode and start to create and brainstorm and build things and come up with new ideas, sometimes they don't think about as that answering the challenge, right? So it's really important that you pay attention to the challenge and you go back to the scoring page as well as the tournament data form. It's a really good guideline to make sure what they're creating makes sense, okay? And obviously it's for the team to do, not the team manager, but team managers, you know, it's a good guideline for you to have someone that pays attention to that challenge on the team, someone on your team. I used to have someone I called a content manager, and that was their job to make sure they knew a bit more about the challenge, how it's written and all of that, than someone else on the team. Rules of the Road is also another very important document. It changes every year, so even if, nope, go back, sorry, back one. So even if you have read it in the past and you know it's a large document, still important to scan through that and make sure there's nothing new that you didn't know before. There is new information each year, as I said. And I think it's really important for teams to read the tournament section so they know kind of what they're in for, what's coming, what I can and can't do. So be sure that someone looks at that document as well. Okay, bing. And then for this particular challenge, you have 8 minutes or less to do your presentation, or the team does. And if they go less than 8 minutes, they are not docked for any reason, but it's just that you cannot go over 8 minutes. Right? So make sure the team is aware of that, and as they practice, they time themselves to make sure they make it in the 8-minute time frame. From a budget perspective, $150 is the limit, and it's important that you understand that that means for the final challenge that or presentation that they put out there. As we know, when kids go through DI, they try different things, they attempt different things, which that can cost you money, right? You have to buy this, that, and the other thing, and then they say, forget it, we're going to do this. It's that final presentation that they're going to present at tournament, and think about it as, what if another team had to create this solution? How much would that cost? So it's a good way to kind of, in your mind, think about it and have the kids write down what they're spending money on to be sure they stay within the limit. And then the roadmap for success really is, as we all know, these challenges are solvable on various levels. You think about an elementary school team reading this versus a university team, and you know, teams come up with all different types of solutions to the same challenge, and it's really exciting, and that's what's great about DI. And just make sure your team understands the mantra. If it doesn't say you can't, you can, and that's, you know, what we're really looking for in DI is that extra creativity along the way. Okay, so any questions so far before I move on to the central challenge?
Nope.
You have anything, Kate, in the...
No, just,
okay.
Yeah, no, you're doing great.
Okay. Okay, moving on to the central challenge. So obviously the central challenge is called Making Waves. Hope you're at the right place. Points of interest here relate to building a sound machine that produces 2 sounds, creating and integrating 2 visible displays of the sound waves into the presentation, creating and presenting a story that has a change to a faster or slower narrative pace, and then having 2 team choice elements. So we're going to talk about each of these so that you have a better understanding than you did before you showed up. Okay, next page. Okay, this outlines all of the different things your team will learn while taking on this challenge, and I think it's important for the kids to understand this, and also even sometimes team parents like to know, you know, why is my kid even doing DI? And with this particular challenge, there really are a wide range of things that kids will learn about, and that's what makes it really exciting. And sometimes, you know, thinking about what they're learning, what's on the right-hand side is really kind of the life skills part of this, and that's what I always found really exciting as a team manager, that it's not just about learning how to solve this challenge, but it's about working with others, time management, and project management skills. I think that's really key. Next page. Okay, there are 3 key areas that we already talked about. So this is broken into the story is a key piece of the puzzle, the sound machine that they will create, and then the visual display of sound waves. So next page. Okay, starting off with the story. So the story is 25% of the total challenge points, I guess I would say. And as we all know, there's a regular pace to when you're telling a story, or even as I'm giving this presentation, right? What we're used to hearing, how we pace things. And in this story, the team either needs to speed up or slow down at a certain point in time. And they can do that multiple times during the challenge. But on the tournament data form, it will give you a choice of which way you're doing this. You're going to speed up at some point, you're going to slow down at some point, and that's what the appraisers will be looking for. And the other key takeaway here is the story can be set in any location, real or imaginary, or in any time period. So that's pretty exciting for the kids. You know, there have been challenges over the years where a little more narrowly defined. So I think it's exciting, the story. There's a lot of openness to what the kids can create here. Next. Okay, in the narrative pace, we kind of just talked about this. And then what's important is that it occurs at least once, right, during the presentation, and that the team has to choose either faster or slower. They can't present both, right? So make sure they understand that distinction, that they go one way or the other, not both. Okay? Kate?
Switched.
Okay. And then in the actual, go ahead.
No, I just, you're going great.
Okay. When it comes to scoring the story, creativity of the story and development of the storyline is critical. Clear and effective storytelling is really important, and I think about this a lot with elementary level teams that I've seen over the years where, you know, they might have a beginning and an end, but not really a middle. So it's important that you think just about generically how a story works and does it make sense. And effective storytelling includes the style and method and manner used to convey narrative pace, which we've already talked about a little bit. So the kids really need to think about having a creative story, having something exciting that they want to present to the appraisers to solve the solution. Okay, next. Okay, next up is the incredible sound machine. This is the next piece of the puzzle, which is 42% of the total challenge. The team will design and construct this incredible sound machine that produces at least 2 different sounds and using 2 different methods. So those are key. You can see they're highlighted there in purple so everyone understands that. The sound making device must be presented and designed by the team, and a team member can be involved in operating but cannot be the machine. Okay. Next. Okay, and the sounds must be produced live, so this can't be something that they've recorded and they play, you know, through their phone or tape recorder. Let's take us back in time. The sounds need to last long enough that the appraisers can actually hear it, and that has a lot to do with, in the next piece as well, that it should be heard at a distance of 25 feet. Our tournament sites are all different. Sometimes you're in a very small classroom, sometimes you're in a gym. So it needs to be loud enough that it's evident to the appraisers that it has occurred. Okay, and again, created and designed by the team is critical. If the team does just take an item or a sound machine that does this and decorates it and that type of thing, they will receive lower scores for technical design and innovation. So it's really important that it is created by the team.
How interconnected do they have to be, the sound machines?
Jim, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but they can be interconnected. They don't have to be, right?
That is correct. They don't have to be interconnected, but one machine can make different sounds, multiple sounds.
Right. Exactly. So if they created one machine that produced 2, 5, however many sounds, that's acceptable. And in your tournament data form, you would list which sounds the appraisers would be appraising. And if they had 2 separate machines that produced, you know, 1 sound each, that's acceptable as well.
Yeah, that would be fine as long as it's on the tournament data form and we have a good description.
Okay. Okay, and the point of this page, I think we'll know what sound is, and the definition is listed there so that everyone's clear. But one sound must occur during the standard narrative pace of the story, and then the other will occur during the faster or slower narrative pace. So the kids do need to make a decision on what will happen when. Okay? Next page. We're going to skip this page. This is just some additional detail for you. I think we've gone over most of that at this point. Okay. Next piece is the visual display of sound waves, which this rounds out the 100% of the challenge, which is 33% for visual display of sound waves. And we are encouraging teams to study cymatics, which is the scientific study of sound. This is a scientific challenge, so the more they understand about that and then apply what they've learned to their story or solution, that will be really good. And then the team must create and present 2 visual displays of sound waves that correspond with the sounds listed on the tournament data form. So there is a connection between the sound and then the visual sound waves. right? And the displays can be artistic or theatrical, and they can be directly caused, and may be directly caused by the sound waves. So, you know, there is a correspondence here between, as I said, the sounds that are made and then the sound wave. So next page.
Hey, Julia, we
Yes.
got another question, but I'm thinking this one might be a clarification more. Can the sound machine be connected to a computer to run? The sound machine would not be the computer. I would think that needs to be a
That's a
clarification.
clarification.
Yep.
Yeah, that needs to be a team-specific clarification.
Yeah, so Cindy, what you need to do, and I'm sure we'll talk about it a little bit later, is submit a team-only clarification with your question, and then the International Challenge Masters, who have the final say on any question, will go ahead and respond. I think they respond within 2 days, so they're pretty fast. Okay.
Okay. So corresponding with the two live sounds, what does that mean, right? So it's not required that they occur at the exact same time, but one happens during the standard narrative pace, the other during the faster or slower, whichever your team chooses. And then just a note at the bottom here that if the sound fails to produce one or both sounds, the team can still earn points for the visual display. So, you know, these two pieces of scoring are separated, the machine and the sounds, and then the visual display. So that helps kids get, you know, more points if there's a failure point somewhere in their presentation. So I think that's great, actually. All right, next.
Hold on. I'm trying to. Okay. Does correspond? I think you might have answered this. Does correspond with the two live sounds listed have to occur simultaneously, or can they be tied but not at the same time?
They do not have to be. They do not have to correspond.
Okay. Great.
Yep. Okay, and we're not going to talk about this page. These points of interest pages, I think you guys can read on your own when you look at the deck. So I wanted to pause just for a second, and Kate, I know you're getting some questions, but that's really the bulk of what we're going to talk about for the central challenge. So if people have specific questions around the challenge, could they ask you now? Could we do that? Let's pause for a minute.
So we have a couple of questions about computers and the expense but computers are always exempt because they're available in they're said to be available in every classroom, so computers actually are an exempt expense.
Anything that's commonly found in a classroom, yes. So desks, chairs, computers, musical instruments, any of those things are exempt, but there's a full list in the rules of the road of what is exempt and what's not.
Okay, so Kevin's question is, if they made a xylophone and struck a bar that makes a note, could the second sound be different bar that plays a different note, or would that be the same method? I think that's clarification.
Yeah, I would think it would be the same method, and there needs to be two separate methods involved.
Right. Yep, that's how I interpret it as well.
But I'd have them ask.
Yeah, Kevin, I would definitely go ahead and ask that to the International Challenge Masters as well.
Kate, how many new TMs do we have tonight?
I don't know. If you're new, just write, raise your hand if you're new. Let's see. About half, so about 8. No, about 5 out of 13 are new.
Oh, okay.
Okay, that helps. Okay, any other questions right now, Kate, or should I keep moving?
I don't think so. I have to go back to my different panel.
Okay.
Let's see. I'm not sure. I'm going to read the question as it is written. I cut out. Does the machine? Oh, I get it. He cut out. He didn't hear us. Does the machine have to use? Does the machine have to use 2 different methods
to produce sound? Yes.
Yeah, yes, it does.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
Okay. Great. Okay, so moving on then. The team also has a team identification sign, and just so especially new team managers are aware. This is put up in front of you when you do your presentation.
Wait, I'm sorry, Julia. Just a couple, sorry. Just to clarify the visual component, I'm still trying to figure out what to do. Can the students pretend to be sound waves? Use a sheet to be waves? Question mark, question mark.
Again, that's open to interpretation. My interpretation would be yes, they could. How many points they're going to get for that depends on what level they're competing.
Right, and we talked about also, visual displays may be presented as artistic or theatrical representations. So that's definitely written in the challenge. So I agree with Jim. That is something you can do, but thinking about the complexity or how you're solving the solution is probably important as well.
Okay, that's it right now.
Okay.
Okay.
So what I wanted to say for new team managers, the reason for this team identification sign is so that when the appraisers have the piece of paper in front of them that has your team number printed on it, team name printed on it, that we know that we're looking at the right team. Okay, so it's an important piece, but it is not a scoring element. So teams don't have to spend hours on the team identification sign. Okay. TCEs, team choice elements, are next. So while the challenge is an important piece of this, right, there's team choice elements that allow your team the opportunity to really showcase what they can do, what they're good at. It has to be described on the tournament data form in detail, and it has to have a meaningful connection to the central challenge solution. So an example we like to use is, if Susie's really good at gymnastics and she's sitting in the corner doing cartwheels for 5 minutes and has no connection to what's going on with the rest of your performance, that's not well integrated. Okay, I think people understand that. So really the goal is to make sure a team choice element is integrated into the solution and makes a difference. And a key point, that last point there, may not be an element that is scored in the central challenge. So you can't say, well, this is really cool. This is something special that he knows how to do, but it's also a key component of your central challenge. That causes confusion in the scoring, so it can only be scored in one place. So you have to make sure kids make that distinction as well. Okay, next page. What the team choice elements are scored on is creativity and originality. So kids really need to think about being creative here. And so if someone plays an instrument but plays a song we all know, that wouldn't be as creative as playing an instrument and playing a song that you wrote, okay, that sets the mood or something like that. Quality, workmanship, and effort. It's really obvious to tell on a TCE if you've spent time on it. I think that's really the goal of this scoring component. So effort, quality, it can't just be something crappy that was put together the night before. I mean, it can, but I would tell you get a lot more points if it's obvious to them that it took time for the team to create it. And then integration into the presentation, we touched upon that a bit earlier. So an example of a TCE that one of my teams did that was pretty cool was an hourglass. And the hourglass was used in the story to say you have, X amount of time to do Y, whatever it was. But it was made out of spray bottles that were put, on top of each other and glued together in a neat way and decorated really cool. And that was a really well-received TCE. So just as an example of an object you can have that's used within the presentation versus just someone singing, dancing, instruments, because that's a lot of what we see. Okay. And then the presentation site will be 8 feet by 10 feet wide, and it will not be marked off. The team can use any additional space if there is some. And then from a floor surface perspective, you have to be ready for hardwood floor or carpet or something else. So, every tournament site is different. There's no way to guarantee what it's going to be. I would recommend that a team think about, how are we going to move this if it's on a carpet? How are we going to move it if it's on a hardwood floor, and not take for granted that it will necessarily be easy. My team has had props before where you had to, put it on something so it could roll. So think about that as you're getting ready to go to tournament. And then electrical power, we will have power available for you with a grounded extension cord. And this is something where I've seen teams bring their own extension cord just in case, but it is something that is provided at every tournament. Okay.
I think it is always good, though, to make sure that you have your own, too, and just in case. Always just in case.
Ours have been known to fail.
Yeah.
Ours have been known to fail.
Yeah. Okay. And next page. So putting it all together and looking at the central challenge and how things are scored in the percentages, I think it's important to see the picture like this. So 42% of the score will be the incredible sound machine, so that's where you can make your most points. Visual display of sound waves, 33%, and then the story is 25%. So having a team understand where the points are, I think, is really important in a challenge. So this is something, this is in your in the challenge, itself. But I think it's important that teams pay attention to this, so they don't spend all their time on, say, visual display of sound waves, only to realize, 67% is the story in the incredible sound machine. So I think teams need to be understanding this part of it. Next page. And then putting it all together for your overall score, central challenge is 60%, instant challenge is 25%, and then the team choice elements make up that last 15%. Okay? So we kind of move now into talking about the tournament a bit more than the challenge and that type of thing. Are there any other questions right now, Kate, that we need to answer, or are we good?
Not right now, but if you have questions, please answer them. Again, we can't give specific. Sometimes we have to send you to International Challenge Masters, which we'll go over in a minute. But if we can, we will.
Okay. I'll keep going then.
Yep.
Safety is a top priority for DI. So first point here is about team managers can help teach, safety techniques for things that a team might do to solve the challenge. It's not interference to prevent injury, right? So if somebody's up on a ladder and going to fall, obviously you can get in there, but you can't build or do anything for the team, right? So then also the rules of the road has information about chemicals, electrical devices, dry ice, helium, etc. So it's important to look there for what the latest rules are. No props that look like weapons. We have schools where tournaments are held where there's no tolerance policy for that type of thing, so be sure your team is aware of that. And each tournament has to be operated according to the campus rules plus kind of our rules of the road. We don't usually have issues with that, but it's important, as the team manager, that you understand some of that and that your team does as well. And one highlighted here in purple, I think every year we catch somebody, but the team members have to wear shoes or foot coverings. So wearing those pajamas that go all the way down around your feet and it's just thin material is not a shoe covering. It has to have a plastic, not plastic, but
it has to have a substantial sole.
A sole on it, right? A sole on it to make sure that no one gets injured if there happen to be something on the floor. And then proper eye protection is required if you're dealing with dry ice, for example. So
the dry ice rules changed in the rule. That's one of the changes in the rules of the road this year. So make sure you do look, if you are using dry ice, make sure you do look at the rules of the road, because it was changed.
Okay. On to appraisers. So appraisers are the people that do the scoring for your team. They're all volunteers spending their time, much like a team manager, but they're the ones at the tournament. They have about 15 to 18 minutes to prepare, evaluate, and score each team's solution, so it can get to be a pretty quick and somewhat stressful day for appraisers. So they are required to use consistent scoring evaluations, so they are watching as the teams come through and making sure that they're differentiating between a team that has less complexity to a team that has more complexity. And appraisers are, I guess this might be overstating it, but I always feel like appraisers really want the kids to entertain them, want them to solve the solution, want them to do it right. They're really sitting there wanting to give you as many points as they can. So let the kids know that. I mean, appraisers are watching for, gosh, I want to be able to give points. I want to be wowed by this team. So I think it's important for kids to know that. So at regional and affiliate level, we appraise, or appraisers appraise 10 to 20 solutions. And at globals, it's actually probably more like 75. So there's a lot of work that goes into appraising. Next page.
Oh, I have a
Okay.
question on a rule on weapons. We use wooden? Can they make wooden Minecraft type swords?
Um, yeah, basically, but what the best bet would be to use something more akin to a broom handle, which is clearly not a
A
weapon.
weapon. Hmm.
But we have had questions in the past, and they've even gone as far as globals, whether that is allowed or not, because there are some campuses that any representation of a weapon is grounds for being thrown out of school.
Yeah.
And then we have, go ahead, Julia.
I was going to ask if there's something in the rules on the road that gets into more detail on that. I haven't read that yet.
I will look it up. I don't know off the top of my head.
Okay.
A question about the narrative pace, so we're going to go back, take a step
Okay.
backward.
Sure.
Does the narrative pace change have to continue through the skit? So once you change the narrative pace, do you return to normal pace or stay at the changed pace?
It's their choice. They can, if they, let's say they're speeding up, they can speed up and slow down and speed up and slow down as many times as they want. We're just going to be appraising one portion of that.
Yep.
Does that make sense?
Yep. Okay, go ahead.
Okay. So appraisers, back to appraisers. They will appraise what your forms tell them to appraise. So it's very important that your tournament data form is filled out specifically, clearly, in writing that is legible. The copies are dark enough, etc. I mean, I can't tell you how many times as an appraiser I've seen like we can barely read certain things and we may have to come out and ask a question. So let your team know if there's something that doesn't make sense to an appraiser. They will come out prior to them beginning their performance and ask a question. And the kids shouldn't be afraid. It's just we want to be sure we know what we're supposed to be scoring. Okay?
It's again to give all the benefit of the doubt and all the points to your team.
Right. So yeah, and make sure that questions are answered properly as well. I think DI has spent a lot of time in these last few years trying to make the language very simple in the forms, so that it's very specific about what we need to know. So pay attention and be sure the questions are being answered correctly. And I think that's it for that page. Keep moving. And then the fun part is after your team has performed, the appraisers will all come out and ask questions. And the easiest way for this to work is for kids who worked on certain things to be ready to talk to the appraisers about it. It can't be that if, say, you have 7 people on your team, that all 5 or 6 appraisers walk around with the whole team and different people talk. They do have to split and run because of the time frame we have. So it's best to prep your team to know, what are you going to talk about, Susie? John, what are you going to talk about? And then when the appraisers say, I need to hear about the set, John says, I'll talk to you about that, and then they can kind of break off. Because appraisers do appraise different parts of the challenge. They don't all appraise all elements, just so you know. Okay, and for kids to talk about the process, if it was the set as an example, the processes that they went through, and maybe even some of the ways they might have decided upon doing a final thing, like if something failed, we were trying to X and it didn't work, so we went back to this, or we did something different. Explaining the process you went through a little bit quickly is really exciting for the appraisers. It helps them understand and appreciate the work that you did. Okay?
Yeah, I just wanted to just say to Kevin, the weapons policy of the rules of the road is found on page 239. One of our other team managers looked that up. I actually can't get at it while I am on the webinar, so I will go ahead, Kevin, and make sure that I send you that paragraph when in the morning.
Okay.
Yep.
Next up, and the paperwork. So we've referred to this tournament data form, or TDF, throughout the presentation tonight. So there's a TDF, tournament data form, a Declaration of Independence, which is stating that the kids did their own work and there was no interference. And then the expense report is listing the different categories of how you got to the cost of your, or the price of your challenge, okay? So team is responsible for making sure they're legible and logical. It's okay for the team manager to use the kids' words to type or write the elementary level form. Middle, secondary, and university level obviously must fill out their own forms, right? And appraisers, as we alluded to earlier, have a couple minutes to read the forms and be ready to go. So, you know, the more clear and concise the writing is, the better it is. So a paragraph that takes a long time to get to the point isn't as good as 3 sentences that get to the point. Okay? And then it talks about extra attachments here, that there's not a benefit to adding extra attachments. It's better if, you know, things are explained on the form. And always be sure you have extra copies and backups of paperwork. I mean, many times at a tournament we see a team manager come back all sweaty and out of breath because they had to run back to a hotel or a car or something to get the paperwork that somebody else, you know, left behind. So always good to have a couple extra copies. And of course, the appraisers will work with you on that if there's a problem like that. So that tournament data form is just key, and I think it's really important for kids to go back to that really on a regular basis to make sure they're solving the challenge, answering the questions. Okay? And then kind of circling back, you know, knowing the challenge is really key, which we talked about that right at the beginning. You know, what are you creating? Does it match the criteria for what's required for this challenge? Reviewing your progress against the scoring elements. You can see exactly what an appraiser is going to score you on, and the details are right there on that page, so I feel like it's important to do a review there. And it is about, you know, DI really is about that process of creative problem solving, and you will see it throughout your season with your team where they just get really excited about something and ideas are building on each other. And to me, it's really important that you point that out to them, because it doesn't happen every day at practice, as most of us probably know. But when it does happen, it's kind of this magic of DI. I think it's awesome to see kids learn and grow in that way. Okay. Knowing the rules of the road is critical, and we've talked about that multiple times here and even had a question answered by that. So be sure you can assign a content manager like I talked about with the challenge, and have someone on your team come back to the rest of the team and talk about it. I think it's a good way to do it, somebody who likes to read. And if you're new to being a team manager, use the team manager roadmap. So that's available at idodi.org. And it gives you kind of a week-to-week what you should be accomplishing as you get towards tournament day. So it's really helpful and can help make this less overwhelming for you. Okay? Okay, on to clarification. So we've talked about that a bit here too. So it's a way to get a question answered about the challenge. So obviously a DI does the best they can to write these in simple terms and think of everything that might come up, but there are things that people may have a question about that aren't answered in the challenge. So you seek a clarification when you have that type of a question. So there are 2 different types. There are general clarifications, which the challenge masters publish to the whole DI community. So as we go through the season, those will be published out on the website, and you have access to those as a team manager, and it's important to check regularly for those. But then when a team has a specific question, like we talked about here today, you will go through a different process to set that up. You go through the website as a team manager, and you'll see the place to submit that clarification. So you have until February 15th to put any of those out there. And what's important is when you get an answer back, you bring a copy of that with you, attach it to your tournament data form so that the appraisers know what that clarification was. Okay. And today there are, I think we have 4 clarifications.
There are actually 5. Yeah,
are there
there's
more?
5.
Okay. So we've got 5, and I think I'll go through. I'm not going to go through the rules of the road. I want to focus on the ones that relate to our challenge. So the first one listed here at the bottom is the theatrical effect that all sounds produced by the Incredible Sound Machine and any other team-created sound-making devices have on the story. So this is in the scoring section, I believe, and it's really just expanding upon how an appraiser will be interpreting and scoring you on this particular piece of the scoring sheet. So it just gives a little more detail than was there before. And next page. And this, we actually have this in the deck here, where a word was just changed here. Basically, it said before in that last sentence, the team may receive lower scores for technical design and innovation if you decorate a purchased item, and this says that they will. So the challenge masters wanted to change this to be sure that everyone understood that, you know, it's not subjective. It is that you will receive lower scores if you have not created your own sound machine. Okay. Next page. Okay. So when it comes to tournament day, make sure you check in no later than 20 minutes before your performance time happens. The prep appraiser will likely be looking for you and wanting to know where you are. So if your team shows up and just says, hey, we're here, and then you can go down the hall and do last-minute preparations, that's fine. They just need to know where you are and kind of recognize someone from the team. The appraiser will invite you to bring your props to the check-in table, and parents can still carry everything at that point. The team will give the prep appraiser the tournament data forms. So that's one of the first steps, and that prep appraiser encourages the kids to talk with them. There's usually humor. They do work to calm them down, to keep them focused so that they'll have a great performance. That's really one of the keys to our prep appraiser role. And then when the previous team finishes, the prep appraiser will walk the floor with the team and have them take their props to the launch area. And then team managers get dismissed and go to their seats, and they can take, you know, extra stuff back and put it somewhere else in the room. So it's kind of how it begins at a tournament. Next page, Kate. And then, well, we talked about this a little bit. So the challenge appraisers may visit the team if they have questions about the forms. We talked about that. Timekeeper announcer will also visit with the team. How do you want me to announce you, etc. Timekeeper announcer will ask if they're ready to begin. And when they say you may begin, the stopwatch is hit, and it begins the 8-minute countdown to the end of their performance. And then when they're done with their performance, the timekeeper announcer will say time at the end of 8 minutes. So make sure your team knows if they're going over 8 minutes, they will hear that. They'll hear time and they have to stop. That's the end of it. And you know, I just would like to encourage team managers to have the teams practice with a stopwatch, because the disappointed faces when a timekeeper announcer has to announce time and the team had, say, a minute left to go or 30 seconds or just something that was key to the story, it's really sad. So,
it's also a good idea to have them try to get their scoring elements in earlier in their performance. So for exactly that very reason, if we do have to call time and they've gotten all their elements in, it doesn't make any difference.
Right. That's really important. And then make sure your team plans to take a bow. It's at the tournaments when kids don't take a bow and they kind of just stand there. You need that final move so everybody knows it's over. They come together, and then the appraisers will come out to talk to them. Okay. And then we went through this as well. So like I said, the challenge appraisers will come out and talk to you. We need to know who will talk about which thing. When they're done, then the parents can come down and help the team remove their props. And a lot of times it gets rush at that point. It depends on where we are in the day and what's gone on. But as soon as the appraisers walk away, parents can swarm down and help remove everything, right? And then raw scores will be available within about an hour. And there's usually a checklist with all the teams' names and the performance order and all of that, and there'll be a highlight or a check next to your team's name when the scores are available. When you come back, the challenge master will go through those with you. And key point is don't destroy your props until after the award ceremony. Sometimes teams do better than they thought, and then sometimes a team that was going to move on to the next level can't for some reason. And you know, if your team was fourth and first through third get to go, you may be invited to, you know, state or global. So it's important to hang on. Don't let them crash the props until the final deal. And then, you know, moving on to state and globals is obviously very exciting for teams. Oops.
Sorry. I got excited.
Okay, sorry. You're so excited it was over. So anyway, what I was going to say is, you know, going to state and globals is amazing, but really it's what the teams learn in the process of DI through the season that is amazing. And I think every team should celebrate what they learned, what they would do different, what did they see when they were at other tournaments that excited them and got them to want to keep doing DI. So I think we're right about there, even though we don't have the the final
congratulations.
Yeah, the final page is that you made it, and that's really the end of the content that we had for the presentation today. Our goal is to make sure you learned a few things that you might not have known before. For those of you who read a lot, you may have known most of what we went through, but we wanted to just make sure everyone was grounded in the same information.
So I do have a question. Well, not a question. I got a question to get the Southwest Regional Challenge Master your email up, which is here, Jed.
Okay.
It's Julia, which is jedh88@centurytel.net. And then team manager graciously wrote down the weapons policy, which was teams must be aware that school buildings have zero tolerance policies. It's the team's responsibility to find out from the tournament director prior to the tournament if the site-specific restrictions on the use of, I can't see the rest of on the use of the weapons and those items. And then I have a question about, does a financial limit include costumes and other props or just the sound machine itself?
Props, everything else that's on stage, as long as it's not a common classroom item, does have to be added into the expense report.
Yep.
But people need to keep in mind, though, that a lot of that can be stuff that they got out of dumpsters that they bought from garage sales. It's not retail pricing.
Right, and the rules of the road have details on the expense report, what the categories mean, what falls into each section, so it's important to look there.
Okay, I showed the kids how to make sound with glass and water as a demo, and now they're wondering if they could use that idea in their design. Is that interference? If so, how do you teach sounds without interfering? So that is interference. Once you sort of demonstrate, a way to do it, they kind of can't use that way anymore. So you have to find more
generic ways of explaining it.
Right.
A good example is for a structure. If they were in a structure competition, we had my brother-in-law, who's a bridge engineer, come and explain how bridges worked. But he wasn't saying, here's how you should build it and this is what you should do. But these are the types of ways that things can be done. So in the generic, but if they take something that you specifically give them to them, yeah, that's outside interference.
Okay, and you can, the other way is that you can have them do research, and you can help them, guide them to research as well.
Well, that's sort of the whole point, is to make sure that they get a fundamental understanding of how sound engineering works and what the end results of their actions are. They might start with the glass of water and the finger on the rim and leave that way behind before they're finished.
Right, because that's just a sample of vibration, and there's lots of ways to vibrate things. Any other questions? All right. Well, if there are no other questions, make sure you write in for clarifications on any sorry, so if there's no other questions, make sure you write in for clarifications if you have a specific solution question. Anything, the final word always ends with the International Challenge Master, so just let you know that. And if there are no more questions, we just want to thank Julia and Jim for their time tonight and their time to put together the trainings that we've had. And thank you to you team managers for doing Destination Imagination for your kids and for yourselves. So thank you for your time this evening, and we'll look forward to seeing your solutions at competition. Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Okay, good job, Julia. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks, Jim. I'm glad you were there.
Oh, I just wanted to hang out and see what was going on.
Yeah, no, Very good. So now it's just us. So
No,
Kate-
no, it's not. Anybody, there's still people on the phone.
Oh, okay. I didn't know if it shifted over.
No,
Different panels.
no. So you guys are still live. So thank you guys very, very much. And I'm going to end it so I can
Alrighty.
record, and I will be putting this up on YouTube.
Okay.
All right. Awesome.
Thanks.
Mhm.
All right.
Bye.
Thank you, guys.
Bye-bye.
We'll talk to you all in a bit.
Bye.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.